Welcome to the Geek Homeworld. I am your host, SavageTechman. We talk sci-fi, TV, movies, superheroes, and all from a geek perspective. You can find us on Blogger, Google+, Twitter, Facebook. We're everywhere. Join the Geek Homeworld. Welcome to another episode of the Geek Homeworld. I am your host, SavageTechman, aka Ed. Welcome to another exciting episode. And as we begin kind of on a somber note here. I'm just a few hours away from the announcement that we have had another iconic person in the realm of the geek world who has unfortunately passed. At the age of 88, Adam West, best known as Batman to all of us, and he did several other projects, but he'll most notably be known for playing Bruce Wayne / Batman. And it was from the series in the late 60s, Batman, that was on TV, and it was I remember growing up because I was born in 70, so in the early 70s, I had some of my great shows that I still hang on to, like The $6 Million Man with Lee Majors. Very important show in shaping my geekdom to this age. Very good memories around that, too. But Batman was one of my favorite shows, as well as I'm sure millions of other young kids that watched the show and still can see the show now. It's out on Blu-ray, the entire series, so you can download it, stream it, whatever. And I remember just what an impact watching Batman with Adam West and Burt Ward as Robin, how much it had on me. And it still does to this day. Now, when you compare all the Batman incarnations all the way through television to the movies to all the different actors we've had to play Batman, for me, Adam West was always my first, and yes, there were some before him that played Batman, and we have a whole episode relating to that, the kind of history of Batman, part of our Dawn of the League series, and I'll be posting that or reposting that just to remind people to check that out if they want a little background on Batman on television and in the movies. But we're not going to go into a great history of it on this particular part of the podcast, but it made me think about how good of a show that was. And yes, looking back, the things like the shark spray and all, they're so comedical. But the thing about Adam West is that he played it with an interesting sense. He never played down to the viewers, kind of like George Reeves was with The Adventures of Superman, which was another great show that was actually a little bit before my time, but I still watched it growing up, and I'll still watch it to this day. And it was one of the best portrayals of Superman. Now, when I think of Adam West as Batman, I think of, he was just the beginning. He was very much how do you say? He's very campy. I guess that's the word that's always associated with Adam West and Batman. But one of the most important portrayals of Batman for me, because it was fun before Batman. Actually, then Batman was more of a detective like he was originally intended to be. As we get into the movies, everybody's focusing on the cool gadgets and the stunts, and that is important, very important. But when we look at Adam West's portrayal of Batman, he took it seriously, but it was kind of a wink, and it was a throwback to an innocent time. It was a different kind of Batman, just as eventually Christopher Reeve's Superman was a portrayal from a more innocent time. So Adam West did a wonderful job of that. I thought he brought the campiness and the fun, with the way everything looked, the pow and the bam and all that on the TV, when they hit a criminal or something, and and you have all those iconic little I don't even know how to describe them, but it would say pow or bam on the television screen, and it was just fun, and it was escapism. But especially when I was young, it was just a really fun, interesting way to portray Batman. And it was I like the fact that I'm a visual person, so I love the bright, different colors. There were all these myriad of colors, and that show looked like nothing that was on TV at the time. And they did a wonderful job with the writing. And yes, when I look at it, there are things about it when I watch it, it makes me cringe. And some people would put probably that Batman towards the lower echelon of who was the best Batman. Like if we say who's the best Joker, you've got, from Batman, you have the Joker there, but you also have from Batman the movie 1989, a lot of people will say Jack Nicholson. And then, of course, everybody wants to say that Heath Ledger is still possibly, if not the best, definitely second best. But I think I can live in a world where there's room for more than one person portraying a character, whether it's a villain or it's a superhero, and that be one of the best incarnations. Now, Heath Ledger, the depth and seriousness that he brings to the role of the Joker took it to such a different level, such a great level. Jack Nicholson played the Joker a little bit more campy, almost a throwback to Joker, how he was portrayed in the Batman television series. But for me, one of my favorite Batman, as it were, or portrayals of Batman, was obviously Adam West. But I did love Michael Keaton, and to this day still love Michael Keaton's performance in the 89 Batman. And then I think was it 91 or 92 when we had Batman Returns. And a lot of people forget Val Kilmer's Batman. Okay, it was a different, more intellectual, in a sense, Batman. And then we get to the George Clooney Batman, which was almost a throwback in a way, but not intentionally and not in the good way, to Batman, to the Adam West Batman. But Adam West, for all of us, in TV and in movies, he was growing up. For us, he was the Batman. He's the one that kind of started it all. And when I think about Batman as the TV series, I think that it was just a lot of fun. It was just escapism in its best form. So it wasn't like meant to be taken seriously. It was a way to kind of get away from what was going on in the world, and it was very important. It was very fun. It was just a chance to escape. I think some of the best incarnations of Catwoman were done on there. Batman the Penguin, oh my gosh, the Riddler, there were just, I love Batman has some of the best characters still in the comics and to this date, some of the most interesting, complex. And I actually got kind of caught up on Gotham, which just got renewed, I think, for a fourth season now. And it was interesting how they're bringing all the characters together. And, spoiler alert, if you hadn't seen the season finale of Gotham, you'll see that basically he is doing the whole Clark Kent Smallville thing from like season 8 or 9, where he started wearing black, and he started the vigilante thing. So I think they're at least alluding on Gotham next season that maybe we'll get a chance to see a young Batman. So the tradition continues with Batman. Batman's not a character that's going to go away, and he won't be off of the screen too long. We're going to see him again in Justice League at the end of this year. Ben Affleck reprising his role as the Batman. And then eventually we're supposed to be seeing Batman on the big screen again as a solo feature, but we're not sure how that's going yet. But I know we're getting a little bit away. We're talking about Batman in general here, but we're honoring Adam West. And like I said, he passed at the age of 88. That's a good long life. And he didn't ever run away from being Batman. There were so many guest appearances he did on shows and everything. And it was just really cool to see him acknowledge how important his portrayal of Batman, even though it can look dated and very campy at times, so what? So what? You know, when somebody says, well, this particular incarnation of the character, it's too serious, or it's like, for some people, Heath Ledger's Joker was very dark. Jared Leto's was extremely dark, but not as good, you know? And we can debate who's the best Joker, who's the best Batman. I intend to look on the side of they're different flavors of the same thing, you know? It's like when you feel more campy, you might think of the Joker as Jack Nicholson, or the Batman incarnation of the Joker. Or if you think of Batman, you may think of a campy version, or a not so serious version would be Adam West's Batman portrayal. But then you'd look at like Justice League Batman and say, oh my gosh, this is like really hardcore. Or really, Dawn of Justice is probably the most hardcore we've seen Batman in any incarnation. I mean, of course, there's the animated series too with Batman, and which is exceptional. Is one of the best comic book adaptations that ever was out on TV. And that was really good there, you know. And then you look at different actors who portrayed Batman, and they did it so beautifully in their own unique way. So it's hard to tell. It's really hard to even dislike. Now, here's something that's going to go crazy controversial to some, but if, and I've said this before, if Batman, not Batman, but if Bruce Wayne were an actual living person in our actual time right now, the question is, who would be Batman in real life? Okay. And there's two people that I think could be Batman in real life. And one just settled down. He's married and now had just had twins, George Clooney. So people go, oh, that's a terrible Bruce Wayne. He's not Bruce Wayne. But if you think about the lifestyle that he lives in real life, I think he would be our closest thing to a Bruce Wayne. Now, I do like Ben Affleck's Bruce Wayne. I like his Batman. You know, early on, a lot of us weren't sure, but I totally think it's very good, his adaptation of that. I don't feel that, even though Batman and Robin is very cheesy and not in a good way, and even with Schwarzenegger and all the different guests they had in there, it just was pretty bad. And then Christopher Nolan came back with Dark Knight trilogy and saved the world and saved Batman. Batman sometimes needs saving. So that time he was definitely saved by Christopher Nolan. And I'm not taking anything away from those portrayals. Christian Bale was a great Bruce Wayne, a great Batman. But in the real world, if I saw somebody going around living their life, it would probably be George Clooney, you know. Adam West played a very good Bruce Wayne. I mean, I could see him in real life being Bruce Wayne. So that's a testament to a good actor. It's not so much you take up a role and you become something different. You know, you're not the same person that you were in your life. You know, if you're a good actor, and people like Kevin Costner, sometimes people will say, well, that's just Kevin Costner, or what we're referring with Ben Affleck, as we call him Batfleck, is that we were afraid that they would just be Ben Affleck playing Batman or Kevin Costner playing Jonathan Kent. And to an extent, I think both of those actors transcended who they were, and you didn't just see the actor, you saw the character they were trying to portray. Though I do have a few misgivings about the Batman, Man of Steel, and Batman versus Superman, Dawn of Justice portrayal of Jonathan Kent, because they weren't the strong, like John Snyder's strong moral, not that they weren't moral, but they just were, you know, do this, do that, you know, like Martha Kent, be all they want you to be, or be none of it. You know, and I get their point, but that's not what we've normally heard from Jonathan and Martha Kent. There's usually been a little bit different interpretation in what they're teaching their son, Clark Kent, to be, you know, in becoming Superman, and in using his powers and dealing with all that comes with it. But I think that when we see Batman, we expect something a little different. That's what we think about Batman. So very interesting, the different characterizations and who can be Batman, who can play it best. So another character that growing up for me was James Bond, and portrayed brilliantly by Roger Moore. And of all the actors who portrayed James Bond, I think Roger Moore, being English by one thing, but I think he exemplified what a proper Englishman, how he would respond to things like that. Now you have movies like Kingsman that basically borrow from that and use a lot of Matrix type moves and special effects and everything, and they do it well. And I'm not saying they're bad, and I enjoy them, but I think a lot of that comes from Roger Moore in his portrayal of James Bond. One of my favorite James Bonds of all time actors was Pierce Brosnan. I think he was the right guy at the right time. I like Daniel Craig's portrayal of 007, but I also enjoy, different Bonds, just like different Batmans. So it's interesting to always see a reinterpretation of a different person taking on the mantle and seeing what uniqueness they bring to the role. And so we see that with Roger Moore. Roger Moore brought that sophistication, that gentleman Bond, and he had the cool gadgets. They were using the cool gadgets. Now we get later on to Bond, and the latest incarnations of Bond with Daniel Craig, we don't see at all hardly any gadgets, and a lot of fans have kind of missed that. But the gadgets were over the top, and that was how Bond was. And a lot of movies have copied the James Bond thing. The Bourne Ultimatum, I said, is the best non-Bond film I've ever seen. I could see not that level of the constant cuts and everything, but and the physicality of it, which Daniel Craig has, but Matt Damon brings his Jason Bourne character into the realm of being basically James Bond. So, I mean, it's a different story and everything. I get that, but he does a great job of bringing a Bond-like bit of things to the character. So that's kind of interesting.
Geek Homeworld Review Preview.
Now we're talking about our spoiler-filled segment of the podcast about the excellent, extraordinary, extravagant, exceptional Wonder Woman. Finally, DC has a movie they can be extremely proud of, not just in box office and how much dollars it made, which it made a lot, and they now have a movie that has brought exactly what the fans want to see. And some say, in some circles, that Wonder Woman may now be more prominent a figure than Superman, who is meant to be the big tentpole part of Justice League. So it's going to be interesting to see how Justice League is, and beyond that, how Wonder Woman is going to fare as a main character, because this movie did exactly what it needed to do. We needed to have a out-of-the-box, blockbuster, big opening, and just over 100 million, a little bit more, is what the opening weekend box office is. And this weekend, as of the recording of this, it should dominate for a second week. So all power to Wonder Woman. What an exceptional feat for the female director of this movie, which, in this day and age, we shouldn't be saying male director or female director, but this movie is more than just a movie. It's more an empowerment moment for young girls, for women everywhere, to see a movie directed, a big budget movie done very well, and actually better than some men in the industry that possibly could have done this movie. And not to take anything away from anybody, but the fact that it's a female, it's also us seeing a female lead for the first time ever, very historic, of a superhero, a female superhero. And she's not playing second fiddle. She's not just thrown into like Justice League movie or Batman versus Superman as she was. She can stand on her own 2 feet, so to speak. And what an encouraging, empowering thing it is to see how successful audiences have just really enjoyed this movie. You know, it's not just that one person, it's a team, and from top to bottom. And I know from being in a production and seeing it firsthand how important it is to have that whole team effort. And I heard originally on that there were some possible problems with the production early on. Some of the early reviews were not good for this movie, and in spite of all that, they have come out with an exceptional movie, and DC's finally hit a home run. And Man of Steel, I mean, this beyond Man of Steel even, and there was a talk about hype and backlash on it, but this movie was compared to the excitement, I guess, the enthusiasm when people saw, I believe it was 1978, Superman the movie with Christopher Reeve, his first outing in that movie as Superman, his first, time as Superman, and how exceptionally it was. The tagline was, "You'll believe a man can fly," and you'll believe a female warrior can kick ass and do it well and have that sense of purpose. She has almost that Superman-like Boy Scoutish kind of enthusiasm that all people are good and that no one should suffer. And these are noble, wonderful qualities that Gal Gadot portrays for her character of Wonder Woman in Diana Prince. So should you go out and see this movie? Well, obviously you already have. And this is where I can speak freely about the movie on this segment of the episode, because usually when we put an episode out, we have our spoiler-free version of it. Now, if we hate the movie, totally dislike it, kind of like Independence Day Resurgence, we pretty much came out and said, don't waste your money, and because I was so upset by the movie, and you can listen to the podcast and find out how and why and for what reasons, or just look at the box office and tell why. But I was waiting like 20 years for that movie, and it let me down. So it wasn't just my high expectations, it was just a bad story, and it could have been done better, et cetera, et cetera. But this is not about Independence Day Resurgence. This is about Wonder Woman and talking about the wonderful things that there were. Now, since this is the spoiler-filled review of it, I would have to say for myself that if there were one negative sort of thing, and I understand it doesn't take away from the movie, but one negative point for me would be the gentleman that played Ares, and I'm glad we got to see Ares when Wonder Woman fought Ares, and he basically he's kind of like Loki, but just a little bit more involved, and in the fact that he kind of manipulates people, but Ares was really tying into her, see what mankind has become, and you should join with me, blah, blah, blah. Sounds like the Emperor, doesn't it, from Star Wars? And kind of a Darth Vader thing going on there with Luke Skywalker, join me and we can rule that galaxy. But it was, she'd never turn to Ares, just like Luke Skywalker told the Emperor, I'll never be your servant or whatever. I'll never turn to the dark side. And let's hope in The Last Jedi that's true. We'll see. But anyway, the fact is that Wonder Woman portrayed beautifully Gal Gadot, her struggle with that, the good and the bad, and she saw the ugliness of mankind, but in the end, of course, the goodness of mankind and the potential that we have as a species, as a race, above all of that, the potential that we have to do good and good should be done when good can be done, and that's something that should be celebrated and cultivated, and it's done very well in Wonder Woman. And Gal Gadot, what a superior performance that she gave. In fact, during some of those very iconic battle scenes, like when she first steps out, this is in World War One in the movie, and she steps out there to basically cross the field into, I think it's called No Man's Land, ironically. Well, she's the first person to step out there, and because most people who go across there get cut down by the enemy, and she just goes out there and just charges forward. And that was a very Superman, Christopher Reeve-like moment. That's one of those moments that should totally be celebrated. One of the best moments of the film, and that's where you see her in full Wonder Woman regalia. There, the uniform and everything, the shield, the lasso, everything's in tow, and she does such a phenomenal action sequence there. There is more to Wonder Woman than action. There is her and Steve Trevor, the little innuendos, the liking each other but not really spelling it out, the man-woman kind of interaction, which is really cool because it adds humor to it, to their portrayals, and also it adds a lot more in the sense that, how do I say it, that it just adds to the playfulness of the movie. So there's that fun, but then there's one beautiful scene when the snow starts falling and she's never encountered snow, and it's in, I think it was a French town. I'm not sure of the nationality, exactly where they were. It was during World War One, during the whole conflict, but they were on one of the fronts there, and they had a beautiful moment where they're dancing, and there's snow coming down, and just a beautiful, romantic, really nice moment that you don't see in a lot of superhero films. And I think this is going to change. This is going to be more than just a movie, and how The Dark Knight, which this was also compared to, and be careful because The Dark Knight is brilliance in a movie. It's by far my favorite and a lot of people's favorite movie. It holds up still. I could watch it now, and it's still Heath Ledger's performance as a Joker riveting. Christian Bale, wonderful job in that movie. And that, for me, was the epitome of the Batman movies. There's really no way to follow it up. Even though The Dark Knight Rises was good, it still can't top The Dark Knight. In that sense, I can see why they say Wonder Woman's so great and all that. But for me, more than anything, I don't know that it was better than Dark Knight, but it was doggone close to it. We saw it in, by the way, IMAX 3D, which was almost mind-boggling. My eyes hurt when I got out of there, but it was worth it to see, especially the battle scenes with Wonder Woman and Ares, and then, before that when she's running across the field. But the battle sequences were incredible. So we had a period piece here in this movie, we had a love story, and then we had all-out superhero battle, and she doesn't necessarily defeat Ares, but she does a dang good job coming up against him, and because I don't think he's defeated, no villain, true good solid villain like that's ever going to go away. She's going to need, in fact, when the sequel, which they're already working on, the director has told us now, because people were crying sequel as soon as they got out of it, probably tweeting that already, but we will see Diana in modern times, which is good. I'm glad we're not going to be stuck in the past with her character, and I'm glad they're moving it into the present, and just like her coming in there as Diana Prince, and she's got the sword and her shield, and they're like, okay, put that away. And they go take her, one of the funnier moments in the movie, shopping to try to, update her wardrobe to make her fit in. And then the shocker with, of course, I kind of saw it early on, but didn't want to see it, who Ares truly was. And, because they're leading to believe this guy, this general she's been going after, that's taking this enhancement kind of poison or whatever you want to call it, and everything, and it's not him. She literally kills him, which I thought was a pivotal moment, a powerful moment, because she didn't take joy in it, but she felt it was pretty much the righteous thing to do. And because she thought that he was basically Aries and she was wrong. And to find out the guy that was helping her was Aries shows another side of humanity that in her naivety she didn't see. And it's no fault of her own for being naive. It's just that she's been on the mascara all this time. Now, here's a little pet peeve. The little shield that Zeus put around the mascara, the fact that I could maybe see one person coming in there, but this little fog that came up all of a sudden was supposed to prevent it. But they had nobody had problems. I guess it was an invisibility shield, but nobody had problems getting into that shield. Okay. The fact that somebody hadn't stumbled in there years ago and it just happened then that they did around this time seems a little too convenient for me. But the fact that once they started attacking the Nazis or whatever, started attacking the mascara, then it was pretty easy just to come right through the shield. The shield didn't really provide them any protection. It just was an invisibility cloak at best, I guess you could say, that was totally impenetrable, or penetrable, I guess it would be, right? So there could have been more to that. Now, I did like the little explanations of how she kind of came to be, and the kind of, it's not stop motion, but the kind of claymation it wasn't claymation either, but it was that kind of concept, and you know what I'm talking about if you've seen the movie already. I thought that was done really well. I'm trying to think what that's called. It's escaping me right now. But there are so many high points. There's so many things that Wonder Woman went off the charts for being so great about. And, the action, of course, the cinematography, beautiful. The set design, wow, amazing. Especially with the different period pieces, that's hard to pull off, and they did it very well. I mean, there were so many things that were just wonderful about this movie, and I mean, I can't really say enough about Wonder Woman, except the fact that, have you not seen it yet, then you should go out and see it. And truth, power, justice, they should all, especially in this day and time, be things that you strive for. Not so much the power, but to, if you acquire power, I guess in Spider-Man, like they say, with power comes responsibility, and you should be responsible. You should be helpful to others. We all got to work together, and let's do it with the spirit that Wonder Woman showed in that film. And go out and see it again. I wonder how many times people have seen this movie, and I can't wait to see it dominate. But check out Wonder Woman, an awesome movie. Thanks for listening to another episode of the Geek Homeworld podcast with your host, SavageTechman. You can find us on Libsyn, Google+, follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, listen to us on iTunes, see us on YouTube, be part of our Mixler chats. Thank you. See you again on the Geek Homeworld podcast.
Geek Homeworld.